Hello everybody! So happy to see so many familiar faces. So welcome to Coffee Breaks with, my name is Cecilia. In a moment we will meet Darren, who's a UX designer, and tell us all about his industry. So I will invite him now.
Hello! That was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's so impressed. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. You?
Amazing. Yeah, I'm good. Well, welcome to Coffee Breaks with Darren. I guess we'll start this interview to get the ball rolling. If you don't mind telling us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, okay. So I originally trained as a graphic designer a long time ago now. When I left school, I went to found the School of Art and studied graphic design there. So at about the same time that Tim Berners-Lee was writing his little HTML protocol, I was learning how to stick things down and paste things up and do typesetting and stuff. So it was slightly just before computers kind of dominated the industry. So so we did that, and then qualified from there, went and got a graphic design job. It was my sort of first job, which was mostly sort of packaging, branding, print design. And then as part of that, so this is really early days of the web. Not many companies had websites, and the websites they did have were kind of, we need one because everyone else is doing one, with no other real reasoning behind it other than that. So I got put in charge of the web project so we had an external company come in and build it. So it was my job to work with them, and I thought this is pretty interesting. So I made the shift at that point to kind of web design, and I've been doing it really ever since. So it took half a day, I think, back then to learn HTML.
Wow!
Sat down in a
Well-invested time then.
Sat down in a dark room for an afternoon, learned how to write HTML, and started building web pages. That was a long time ago, and I haven't really sort of looked back. So over my career, I suppose I've worked for agencies. I've been a partner in agencies, creative director, head of design for so it's a kind of a mix of things. And I've sort of done stints of being self-employed, working for myself, which is kind of where we are now. So my partner and I have a design agency that's based in the Generator. And off the back of that, recently we have started up a new company, which is a UX testing lab. So it's related to what we do, or what I have been doing as a designer all these years, but it's taking that one UX specialism out and filling a gap in the market locally where we were for a sort of a testing facility, as it were.
That's cool. Like, could you explain a little bit more for somebody who's not that into UX?
Yeah.
Like, what's a UX lab? For
So
me,
it's very. It's not anything.
The...
Yeah, it's not anything from Clockwork Orange where they kind of strap you down and sort of, it's not that. So it's really coronavirus friendly in that we sit people in a room really closely together and ask them questions. So the idea of the user lab is that you kind of have two rooms. You have a sort of I call it a testing room. Testing sounds a bit clinical, it's kind of not, but you have like a testing room where you have a computer in, and then you also have an observation room. And you sit a participant down in front of a mobile or a computer in front of a website generally, and sort of you set tasks for them to achieve, and you watch how to achieve those tasks. You record everything at the same time, and your clients can watch from the observation room. And very quickly, you kind of build up a picture of what may or may not be working on that particular website. So where the pain points might be for a particular customer. And so very kind of quickly gives you an insight as you can change to make it more successful, basically, increase your conversion rates. So it's sort of investing in improving your web presence, as it were. Briefly.
Great. Yeah. Now I have a clear picture of what it's all about. But it sounds like it's a little bit connected to marketing. No.
Yeah,
Well,
it is quite similar to market research, I think. I suppose UX is quite a broad church. There are a lot of, I suppose, tools, if you want to put it that way, that live in the toolbox. And there are lots of different ways of gaining insights and information, some more relevant than others, depending on what you're trying to find out, what stage of the process that you're in. So you can workshop, which I guess sort of fills into the kind of market research thing a little bit, the sort of traditional market research thing. And you kind of can also have those kind of one-on-one test sections. We actually recruit participants through a recruitment company in Bristol who traditionally come from a market research background. So the two skills are quite interchangeable, I think, yeah.
okay. You work from a co-working space?
Yes.
Mainly? Like, do you mind telling me a little bit more about your day-to-day?
So the day-to-day is, as we talked about on the phone, probably what Tom alluded to yesterday, really. The nice thing about co-working space is if for yourself or you have a small company, it's just like going to a big office. So there are lots of people that you can talk to on a day-to-day basis, and it kind of just gives you that discipline of getting up and going to the office, and kind of gives you that human interaction. So I suppose on a day-to-day for us, I still do a lot of design work. So my day-to-day is still wrapped up in a lot of creative work, mostly digital, some branding, some print, but mostly digital. My partner in the business, she does copy and content, and she's also a pretty good illustrator as well. So she kind of pursues that on the side. So our day-to-day is kind of generally that. If we've got user experience projects on, then actually we can spend quite a lot of our time speaking with the client, understanding what it is they're trying to discover from their site. We write the questionnaires or the actual kind of test scripts, and figure out what it is that we want to kind of try and investigate, whatever it is that we're testing. We facilitate the tests as well. So we'll sit there, one of us will sit there and speak to the participant and set the task and ask them the questions and sit and listen to what they're doing. Whereas the other one will probably sit in the background and just write notes as well. And then we spend a lot of time reporting on those findings as well. So we kind of make sense of what's come out of it, pull out the kind of key findings. And what you'll find is you got half a dozen people that go through the test in a day. Things start to kind of become quite similar. So you'll find if a problem arises with one, it generally arises with several of them. So you start seeing trends and patterns appearing in the test. So we kind of note all that down and report that to people. So it's a mixed bag, basically. Yeah. And then in between that, chats over coffee in the kitchen.
We all need
Lots
that.
of procrastinating.
Yeah. Oh. I guess that's the perk of, like, the pro of working from a co-working space. It
is. Yeah, absolutely it is. It's 100%. And like, there are so many different people that work there and do so many different things. Obviously we've got Tom, who's an illustrator. We've got architects. We've got people that run surf magazines and surf holidays, and marketing people and sort of technical digital people, all sorts, interior designers, all sorts of people. So yeah. It's you can always learn something from somebody when you're procrastinating over a cup of coffee. We can work from anywhere doing what we do. I mean, the user experience lab is, there's an element of it being fixed in a geographical location, and that's part of the reason why we started it, because there is nothing in Exeter or the surrounding area that does that. You have to go to Bristol or London to find a lab. So that was our kind of idea. So that does have a geographic location, but everything else that we do doesn't. We can do it from wherever we are. The reason for going to a co-working space is exactly as I've spelled out, really. I think I don't do well with the isolation of sitting at home all day, every day working. And I like to have a change of scenery, and I like to have the discipline of getting up and going to work. I'll drop the kids at school, go straight to work, do a day's work, come home again, and then you can be behind if you need to at the end of the day. And then you have those kind of days of where you have human interaction in between. The nice thing about working for yourself is obviously you don't have to do that 9 to 5. If there's something that you want to do at home, you can stay at home and you can do it, or you can have sort of flexible times, flexible hours. But ultimately, having a base that isn't home works well for me. It's not like, everybody's different, but for me, that works well for me.
Yeah, right. I understand.
Yeah.
So I think we've touched a little bit on how the current situation is affecting like your day-to-day, but how do you think it's going to affect your industry or like in general?
Interesting. So I think there's a few ways of looking at it, really. I mean, obviously, sitting people down in a room and talking to them directly is totally off the table now. But that doesn't mean that we can't run user tests. We ran one last week very successfully remotely. So using software, we can dial up to somebody and run the test remotely. They're on their computer at home, we're on ours. They can see each other via camera. We record the test, what they're doing, and we're speaking as we do now. So, I can still ask the questions. They can still talk through the process with me. They can still explain to me why they're choosing to do something, or what isn't working for them, or whether they're frustrated. And I can still watch them, and I can still pick up those little nuances in their face, or their kind of pauses and the bits that maybe little comments that they say that may need a little bit of further investigation. So the remote working side of it and the remote testing side of it just actually works really well. And I think from a client point of view, there are advantages there as well, in that they can also observe the tests at the same time. But they're generally more cost effective to run because you're not having to rent lab space. And also because everybody's working at home, recruiting people to do the tests, is quite straightforward, because you've suddenly got a ready pool of people that are at home working. We're all working like this now. We've all got video, we've all got chats, we're all on Zoom, House Party, Google Hangouts, Instagram, whatever. So it's quite easy sort of trying to recruit participants that way. And again, I mentioned them before, that the guys that do the recruitment for us, with a market research background, they are still working and they're still operating and they're still recruiting. So there's nothing to stop people doing user testing. Even in this lockdown state. And I think we wrote an article yesterday, released an article yesterday on LinkedIn about some of the winners from the current situation. So we've sort of noticed it locally, seen it on the news and things like that. So there are obviously a lot of companies, ours included, where business has dropped off. It hasn't dried up, but it's certainly dropped off, and we're certainly less busy. And I think from a creative point of view, marketing budgets are nearly always the ones that get slashed first when people are in trouble. But again, I would say that I would caution cutting those budgets straight away if you can get away with it. So what we talked about in the article yesterday were the kind of winners from this current situation. So we've seen it a lot locally, where there's a lot of small food businesses and food producers that are suddenly picking up home delivery, and they are suddenly run off their feet because everybody wants their food delivered. People maybe don't want to go out and get it, but also because of all the pubs, clubs and cafes and restaurants are shut, that's a huge percentage of actually the daily food that we consume that is no longer available to us, which is why the supermarkets are going nuts and all the small suppliers are going nuts, because suddenly everybody has to make up that shortfall by going shopping. So, and then also you've got the online retailers like the electronic retailers, book retailers, probably online learning and those kind of things. So those guys have got real opportunities at the moment in this slightly weird new normal that we're in. And so the article kind of sort of focused really around why this is an ideal time to remotely use a test, because obviously the cost benefits are there, but all of a sudden they're opening up these huge new markets which they didn't have, and business is absolutely booming, and they're rushed off their feet 24/7. And you know what it's like when it's busy, the last thing you want to do is actually work in the business. You know, you're working on the business, or you're in the business and you're kind of just frantically doing orders. You're not working on the business. But actually now's a really good time because you've suddenly got opened up all this market to customers. If you can provide them with an absolute killer user experience or customer experience, then when all this dies down, when all this blows over, you've got a much better chance of actually retaining those customers and actually keeping them, because they'll remember. You know, I think at the moment we can forgive a little bit of slow delivery or, you know, slightly dodgy customer experience or things that go slightly awry because we know that everybody's adjusting to it.
Yeah.
But I think moving forward, maybe when lockdown eases or we all get used to where we are at, our expectations will change again. And if we don't get that customer experience, if we don't get that user experience, then all of that hard work that you've put in, you know, you're sort of maybe in danger. So you can actually at the moment convert all those new customers. There's a potential to convert all those new customers to loyal customers in the long term. And so I think there are advantages for certain types of businesses at the moment in this situation. And I think, you know, making sure that your website user experience, etc., is up to scratch, I think is key in how you retain those customers in the long term moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a lesson we all should take with us during this time and try to focus on the customer journey and developing things. Or those things, focus on the things that we can at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not, obviously there are a lot of businesses out there that are struggling, and that's, you know, it is the way of it, but there are opportunities, and I think, you know, it's a case of how do you best make the most of those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. You have to look at the opportunities as well, and not just the negative bits. For
Absolutely.
Sure. That's a really good tip, Darren. Yeah.
Thanks.
Like it's industry general, you know? Like it spans over not only your industry, but several, like others as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think moving, because one of the questions I think was, what does it look like moving forward? And I think at the moment, and this is not, you know, not in a Corona lockdown state. I think at the moment, most people view user experience as not a luxury, but not as a necessity. And I think at the moment, the companies, if you think of web services maybe that you use and websites that you use, if you think of the ones that you're really loyal to and the ones that you really like using, a lot of that is probably down to the user experience and how it is, you know, how easy it is to use and how it kind of makes you feel. And I think at the moment that there are advantages to be had in that, you know, if you're testing and iterating and listening to the user experience testing and you're actually implementing it, then there are advantages to be had. Moving forward a few years down the road, it's going to be just a necessity, in the same way that a few years ago, just having a website was a necessity. Everybody, you know, I need one because they've got one. And I think moving forward, I think, you know, businesses and websites that don't embrace user experience are the ones that are going to fall off and suffer. So it's, at the moment, it's not everybody is doing it. And those that are doing it are definitely gaining an advantage, but that window will narrow, that advantage will narrow as people start implementing it as part of their day-to-day routine, in the same way that we email market once a week, or we look after our social media channels every day, or you know what I mean? So that looking after the user experience and the customer experience will become one of those day-to-day tasks, and any business that's not doing that probably isn't going to survive, I think, for very long. So.
Yeah, and do you see an opportunity as well, like for people taking on UX as a career as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a difficult one. At the moment, UX is, in the recruitment industry, UX is just like a massive buzzword. Yeah. It's just, you know, you put UX in your Instagram and all of a sudden you get boshed with loads. I got a job, yours perfect, you look great for that, you know. So I think it's still in a period of maturing, and I think it's still in some ways finding its feet, understanding where it sits within the sort of whole creative process, but I think moving forward it should and it will and it should become pretty much an intrinsic part of the process. And it'll just be what we do on a day-to-day basis. It is part of creating a website. It is part of running a successful website. It's just steps that we take that work. So I think that there are always going to be roles for UX designers. I think if you think you're going to do a 3-week boot, smash it, make a fortune, sorry, possibly not.
Career change.
But I think there are always going to be, and I think there are going to be roles moving forward. And actually, I think what will happen is, because user experience is just such a massive field, that actually the specialisms will appear. Specialisms are already appearing, but specialisms will appear more. You might actually you might have just an intrinsic understanding of how business works, and just might be able to smash those business goals on a UX project every time. You might be awesomely good at research, and you might be able to just pick up all those little nuances that other people don't within your kind of UX research. Or you might be a good designer. You might be able to take all that research and create really good, functional, useful wireframes, or even take it one step further and create the UIs for that. So I think it's all part of the process. And I think moving forward, it will probably break into specialisms in the same way that probably design has broken into specialisms to some degree. So I think that there's an ongoing career for that. You never know, we might all get replaced by robots.
Hope not.
But I think that until robots can actually develop empathy, I'm not sure we will totally get replaced.
Yeah, good. I was going to ask you, do you see that as a threat?
Maybe. I think there is automation happening within the industry, within the creative industry, within the digital industry. 100%. There's just automations happening, but everybody can't look the same and be the same and operate the same, because otherwise it just becomes a grey mass of sameness. So I think there are opportunities there, and I think ultimately we'll probably all get replaced by robots at some point, and we'll be. Have you seen the Wall-E film where we'll all float around in a spaceship on their things getting fat? That's probably what will happen at some point.
Yeah, it's so sad. That's depressing. Fortunately,
I'm old enough. I don't think I have to worry about that. I think 20 years time I'll be done and out of here.
No.
That'll be your problem, not mine. I don't know. I think there are things that we do. The nice thing about user testing is that actually it's a really human process, and it's a kind of a one-on-one process. And actually you can get all of the statistics that you can get, all of the hot jar that you can get, all of these things will give you tons of data, show you that something possibly isn't working. They might give you the what, there might be a reason for something. But I think the human face-to-face on the user experience side of things and the research side of things is it can give you the why. So, you might have a page where there's such a massive drop-off of people going from one page to the other. They're not hitting the button they're supposed to. And the stats will show you that you've got a drop-off, but it won't tell you why you've got a drop-off. So maybe you could guess that the wording's wrong, the button color's wrong. Sit somebody down, ask them a question. They say, well, actually, I didn't see the button. It's in the wrong place. Instantly, bang, that's the why. And I think that's what that gives you. So until the machines can replace that, I think we're all right for a bit.
Okay, amazing. Sounds promising.
And actually, I see a little question here by Rebecca floating up at the bottom about specialisms. I think Rebecca, voice is a specialism. It is already becoming a thing, and I think they're already experts in voice out there. I come from a visual background, so voice is not my speciality. I can vouch for that. But I think voice will become more and more important moving forward, definitely. So,
cool.
You all right?
Yeah. Moving on, speaking about the careers. In your field, what would you recommend?
I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget.
For somebody entering your field or exploring your field, any advice? How to get into UX?
How to get into UX. So I think I sort of mentioned it earlier. Really, it's quite a broad field. So I come at it from a creative point of view. So I think for me, good design has always been design that actually works and serves the function that it has been commissioned for. So if it's a poster and you can't read the poster, is it good design? Probably not. So, and the websites are just an extension of that. You know, ultimately, people are trying to solve a problem. And I think good designers have always kind of asked the questions why. They've always understood their market. They've always understood who they're talking to. They've always understood the business that they're working for and what those goals are. And I think this is just an extension of that, and it gives us a kind of a recognized toolkit, if you like. So when we say wireframes, people go, oh yeah, we know what wireframes are. When we say user testing, people go, oh yeah, we know what user testing is. I think so that is part of it. So I think there are a lot of people come from it from many different angles. You get quite a lot of psychologists that come in, you get quite a lot of business people that come in. So, you know, all those experiences are relevant to the field of UX. So I think it's one of those things that you can do. I personally, I think it takes experience. For me, creative experience, business experience, and being able to kind of understand that. So it's not something I think that you can pick up overnight. Like I said, I don't think you can do a 3-week boot camp.
No.
And I mean, I've done some mentoring for a company in Germany called Career Foundry, and they have a really comprehensive UX course, and it takes like 6 months to do something like that. I mean, it's big.
Okay.
It's a really big commitment.
Yeah.
And they run through every single step of the process, and they give you the entire toolbox through the process. And even then, at the end of that, you know, you are starting at ground level. You know, you need then to get that commercial experience and build that portfolio. So it takes time. It takes time. So, but you know, yeah, I mean, it's worth doing. I mean, it is worth persevering with, I think, because you can get a lot of satisfaction out of it for sure.
Yeah. So do you reckon, like, coming from a complete different industry, not the design industry, not maybe be like, as you were saying, like psychologists going into this?
Yeah.
Like a
so
possibility?
so the psychologists, I mean, they understand people. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, I think you know, one of the big things in UX is to be able to develop empathy. So you've got to, and I come at the, I guess I speak from a designer's point of view at this point, in that you've got to leave the ego at the door. You've got to realize that the person that's coming onto the website that you're designing and building is coming to solve a problem. And you have to understand what that problem is. They don't care that you spent 3 weeks crafting the world's most beautiful button with the most amazing animation when you roll over it. They don't care. As long as that button gets them to the point where they can solve the problem, that's what they want to do. So you have to understand that it's not about you. It's about the customer. And ultimately, it's about your client, the business, and their customer, and making that easy for them. So I think anybody can probably move into UX, but I think, like I said before, it's such a broad field that I think people are going to come in with their own specialisms. You know, and their own strengths and their own weaknesses. So, and I think that's where the advantage of being able to specialize probably comes in as well. In that, you know, if you haven't got a creative eye, maybe you don't have to worry about creating effective, well-designed wireframes. You know, maybe you can focus the research or the, you know, other parts of the process where you can add most value, where your experience comes in, perhaps. Right. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool. That's all right.
So I was thinking oh, no, 1 second. I have another question that we've actually received on Instagram.
Hey!
Yay! So Tamsin is wondering, what's the coolest project that you've worked on or you're most proud of?
Tamsin, I hate that question. That's the worst question ever.
You have to be biased now.
It's always probably always the most recent one. Because when you finish a project and you just like, you've had enough of that, but then you kind of look back and you, I could have done this and I could have done that and I could have done that better, and that's, part of us always improving and always learning and always kind of getting better. But I mean, they're all different. That's the thing. They're all different, and they all, they all have good bits about them and they all have bad bits about them, and every project that you ever do, there will always be bits that you can do better. But that's part of the learning and part of the growth and part of kind of constantly improving, really. So.
But I was going to ask you about the 3 Instagram accounts you would like us to, or that we should follow within UX.
Can I cheat a little bit on that one? So it's really, I think that one is really difficult because there are obviously so many Instagram accounts out there. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say, so one of the things, as we've kind of talked about moving into UX, career opportunities, all that kind of stuff, I think one person to follow, and I don't know if they've got an Instagram account, I couldn't find it, is Jakob Nielsen. Hello, Kat. Is Jakob Nielsen, he's the granddaddy of UX design, really.
Oh, okay.
And their company is the Nielsen Norman Group, the NNG Group, and I would follow them, and I would follow they do regular blogs, regular little video tutorials and that kind of stuff. So if you're looking at getting into UX or you're new into UX, they just know. They know their business so well. So they're definitely worth following. Instagram accounts, something like, I mean, there are loads out there, pulled one out of the hat, called UX Design Mastery. And that's one of these kind of dribble style Instagram things that just posts nice UX and UI bits of design kind of on a really regular basis. So they're a great source of inspiration. And talking of inspiration, this kind of leans back to my kind of original, I suppose, career leanings from being a graphic designer. Is there's an awards site body called Design and Art Direction, the DNAD. They've got a yellow pencil as their logo, and they have a really nice Instagram account. And what's nice about their Instagram account is it's full of inspiring things. It's full of award-winning creative, but it's not all digital. So you'll get some digital, you get some advertising, you get photography. And I think one of the big things, what they used to call it at college when we were there, I see James is on here, so he'll recognize this, as being culturally aware. Which is basically just having your eyes open and looking at things that inspire you. So, and it's not, it's not always from the same industry that you're in. It's not always from the same part of that industry. So I think DNAD leans really nicely into that because it is just a really nice set of inspiring images, basically. So there you go. There's my 3.
Thank you, Darren.
All right.
For put you in a few difficult situations. No, but thank you so much for joining. I think we're going to wrap it up here.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. I hope that was useful. And if you get any questions, fire them over, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Yeah. People can reach you on this Instagram.
Yeah, this Instagram. They can reach me on my own Instagram, but that's mostly about bikes and cycling, so you don't really want to go there.
Okay.
Yeah. So Stripe Creative Ltd is the one to use. But yeah, just drop me any questions and cool. Or find me on LinkedIn. Yeah,
that's an option too. We have all
right. Brilliant. All right.
Okay, have a great afternoon,
and you enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. So thanks everybody for joining Coffee Breaks with. It's been great having you all here, and I've seen we kept a steady number throughout, so it's awesome that you guys stick around for the whole chat. I know it can be a little bit long, but I'm glad that you are enjoying it. I'm learning new things every day, so I'm really enjoying this.